Chef Craig Stevens. I'm residing here in Cleveland, Ohio, from Louisiana. I've been doing this for about 4 years, but I've been a professional chef in restaurants, hotels, kitchens for over 25 years. I'm a graduate of the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, New York. Came out of there, worked in Brooklyn for a while at Juniors, and then 1996, and telling my age, I helped out in Atlanta at the Olympic Village, and yeah, I've been all over.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. My name is Chef Aristide Williams. I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, born and raised. I'm a graduate of Southern University in Baton Rouge. Criminal justice major, but my faith is everything. I asked God to lead me to where He wanted me to be, and that was becoming a chef. Since I made that journey, I took $150 of my own money, all what I had, and I moved to New York City, where I decided to chase my dreams. I wound up landing in Marcus Samuelson's restaurant, Red Rooster in Harlem, where I was trained and I learned ins and outs about the kitchen. Since then, I did that for 5 years, and I moved to Seattle to cook for an NFL player by Jamal Adams. Did that for 2 years, moved to Houston for a month, and now I'm in Nashville, and I've been here for 2.5 years, which I love. I've been all over in restaurants, but mainly my heart desires in private chef and catering to small groups, and I like nice plating, stuff like that, creating my own business, creating my own creativity. And I'm super blessed to even be here. God has did so many amazing things in my life, and I have family and friends that support me to the fullest. So I'm just truly blessed.
Well, thank you both for being here. I'm super excited about today. We have these two amazing chefs. Today's subject is experiences. We talk about experiences a lot, right? But what really is an experience? So if you guys can tell me before we dive a little bit deeper into like private chef experiences, what the difference between an experience and a service is. What does experience mean to you? If you want to go first, Chef Craig.
I think experience means to me is you experience something, whether it's culinary or it's things in life. You experience these things maybe for the first time, and these experiences could be either good or bad, depending, right? But in my world, they've been good. I have some good experiences, right? So when we talk about and we hear the word experiences, these things that you discover. And so we say we experience these things and we want to experience good things. So knowing that and the things that I've experienced, I try to also create experiences for other people that are enjoyable too. Whether I'm drawing a picture, whether I'm cooking a meal, whether I'm having a conversation like this, what kind of experience would this be, right? And I will try to make things positive, right? So that's what experience means to me, discovering things that you haven't discovered before, but when you discover them, they are so exciting. That's like, wow, that was a great experience.
Love that. What do you think, Chef Aristide?
So my view on experience is viewing something for the first time. I am very open-hearted, open-minded, and I'm not scared of anything. So I try to have the experience of a person to view something for the first time, and they may love it, like they may not love it. I try to put little things in my dishes where people would never thought they'd try, and you're like, hey, that was really good. I never had this before. I had a guy who didn't like salad dressing. It was so crazy, but I put a spin on it. He didn't even know that it was cheap. He asked so many questions about, well, what you put in it and what. I was like, man, it was a simple recipe, 1, 2, 3. And he's like, and I've never had that before. And just to see people's glow in their eyes when they taste something for the first time and introduce to something, I feel like I've done my job. I feel like I've done the part that I was supposed to do, you know. But experience is all about a new view, a new feel for something, and, you know, an open perspective of something that can be an ongoing thing. So.
Yeah, 100%. You guys, I think one of the reasons why private chefing is growing so much as a category is because people today are looking for new things. It's not easy to find new things today, things that you haven't experienced, things that you haven't seen, because everything is so connected. It's hard to, find those things that make you feel something. And private chatting done right, a dining experience, a meal done right, gives you that. It's one of the things in life that is going to awaken those feelings and that experience that we're talking about. So I think this is an amazing subject for private chefs, because that's what differentiates a private chef from ordering takeout, for example. I know it's like an extreme reference, but it's no chance that you guys are both here. You're both amazing artists, because I know you both call yourselves artists, and I agree 100%. And I know you bring that into your private chef services. So if you guys want to talk to me a little bit about how you apply that art and that passion and that personality in a client's house, that would be amazing.
Well, the way I go about it and the way I look at it is like an analogy of a luxury item, like, like a luxury car or a yacht or a mansion. So you have these luxury items, right? So I think that same type of experience and that same type of thought process in mind is giving them this luxury experience, right? So when they call and they want to experience, sometimes they are saying, okay, we want to take a trip, or I want to buy this, or, and have this chef service. I said, well, this will be a great experience. This will be a great item to have. And so that's how I go about it. So when I start to curate the menu and source the ingredients, they're going to be something that's going to be luxurious, right? So there's going to be upscale. They're going to be premium ingredients. And so, fresh vegetables, your fresh meats, and your fresh creams, butter. I mean, totally upscale, right? So I always say you get out what you put in, right? So premium ingredients will give a premium result, right? And then also all our experience as a chef and the methods on how to prepare it, right? So that's what goes in when I first start creating these dishes. I'll draw them out. I'll sketch the plate, how I want it to look. And, I got like a sketch pad, color pencils. So I'm sketching things out and I say, I don't like this and like that. And I'm always inspired by, young chefs that are doing things, looking at their plating, looking how they do things, and then taking little pieces from that. And hopefully that I can also do the same in my dishes, right? So that whole thing, the way starts from start to finish, draw it out, whether it's in your mind or on a piece of paper like me. I like to draw, like to doodle a little bit. So I'll sketch out my plates. And you want that to be luxurious for that person, for that experience that we talk about. And that's just the beginning. And I'll let Chef come in and how he does his, but that's how I get started with mine.
Well, Chef Craig, you hit all pointers. Me, I am a big art fan. I love to go to museums to get inspiration. Actually, what you said about sketching out things, Chef, is something that I've come to do during COVID. I got bored. I wanted to feel so. I created a coloring book, and that actually just extended for me just drawing out my dishes. And me personally, for experience, I like to go off with the client has never had before. Hey, tell me something that you don't like. Tell me something that you do like. And I try to sneak it in without them noticing, just to kind of trick their mind a little bit to say, hey, you really like this. You just haven't been prepared the way you liked it. Before, as me an experience, I got my own plates. I got my own forks. Like I treat a plate of food as treat a plate as a canvas. And I like to create things that I probably can't remake again. Or like they can't remake it. They can't experience again. My rule is, if I leave with 2 numbers, it was a successful dinner. And so far, I've been leaving with 4 or 5 numbers out of those parties. And I'm just being able to create something that a person would not forget. And they brag to their friends, their family, hey, we had Chef Aris come over, and this dinner was to die for. And that's the pride I have for it. I will say this. From the fresh ingredients like Chef Craig talked about, farm to table ingredients. I'm a little spoiled. I lived in New York where we had a lot of farmers markets. So ever since then, that's all I shop at. So I have a farmers market down the street from me, and I connect with the farmers. I ask them how they grow their products, where they get their products for houses, soil, because you got to think when you're feeding people, that is like it affects their body. You know, you want to give them the premium, the best thing there is to make them feel themselves. So it's all about preparation. It's all about food, where the food comes from, where it's sourced from, what it's plated on, all type of things.
Yeah, let's talk about a very important part of creating an experience that goes with what you just said, Chef Aristide. It's the part about storytelling. And that's another main difference of being a private chef and just being a chef in a kitchen that doesn't get to interact with the people that he's serving, right? Because you are the star of the show here. The whole thing revolves around you, who you are, what your cuisine is like, your background. And for example, what you just said about the farmers markets and connecting with the producers, you get to tell a story from that. So tell me a little bit more about it.
Yeah, Craig.
Yeah, well, with me is that like I had a party, and they wanted to get to know, like how do I get inspirations for these meals? Now, then I started talking about my trip to France when I spent about a month in France. Then I talked about when I spent, a month in China, actually getting immersed in the culture and how they really make dumplings and the difference between authentic Chinese food and an Americanized Chinese food, right? Went to Peru, to learn how to make a good paella, the fresh seafood that they use, the sofrito, it was just totally different things that I immersed myself in to learn these things. But you're right, they were so interested, right? So they set the dinner table, but then they wanted to sit in the kitchen, right? Just to interact with me. And they always ask you like, is this okay? I say, yeah, great. And we spent this whole evening just conversing, talking. I even shared the podcast that I did for you. And they listened to that while I'm fixing their dinner. And they were just so excited. So you're right. It's that the whole experience, getting to know that personality. And when, you are a personality in that kitchen, it's like, wow, we have a chef, and then to hear your background and some of the amazing stories, and things that you have done to get you to where you are, they just get so excited. So that it builds onto the experience as the meal. So as they're eating, they're talking, and I'm telling them, okay, when I was in China, we did this. When I was in France, and they was like, oh, well, what'd you do in France? Well, I was at a Bonjour. I went to a bakery and started making, croissants and baguettes and all these things like that. And then Italy, I learned different cheeses and different wines, Italian wines, because it was all about, California wines here, right? But then I started to learn about different wines, went to the Châteauneuf du Pape in France and learned about their wines. And so the clients, they love hearing that, and that just adds on to their experience. And then when they comment, they'll say, well, man, Chef Craig, wow, that was just great. We just blown away. Not only was the meal good, but the journey, the show, right? Now, I want to just be totally clear on things that you have to read the room, because there are some dinners where they don't want to interact, because especially if there's a big group, they want to interact with one another. If their kids are home from college, or mom or grandma's coming in from out of town and they want to just really see what they've been up to, then you are seen, right? And then you're there. And, you present the meal, you tell them where the meal came from, you give them a little history of the meal, but then you read the room, right? Because you don't want to be too intrusive. But they'll let you know. But most of the time, they want to be interactive. They want to share your experience. They want that. That's why they hire you.
Yeah, and that's also a different kind of experience that you have to help facilitate. And that's a harder one. Because talking about yourself, and well, it's not easy. Of course, it's not easy, but it's easier than to facilitate something where you're a little bit more like hands off, we have to be able to do that. And I think that comes with practice.
Well, for me, storytelling is a little easier. It's easy for me because I tell you all the time, my grandma taught me a lot. Both of my grandmas, Miss Victoria and Miss Lucia. And I was a kid that asked a lot of questions. Like, I'm just be straight up. And sometimes doing the questions. But I just remember me sitting next to my grandma. Well, sitting on top of the countertop while she making a pot of red beans. And I'm like, well, Grandma, why you do that? And Grandma, why you do that? And she would tell me the history of why, African Americans will make red meats on Mondays because it's a slow cooked meal. The husbands will come in for work, and that was the only meal that you could stretch off for the day to be worried about time their counterpart comes home. So I give that story to my life experiences about how I was just a college student making food out of my apartment complex. And I decided that I wanted to make a change. I wanted to stop eating the fast food. I wanted to start drinking more water because, it was catching up to me, to be honest with you. But for us, like just the storytelling with ingredients and where I get this plate from and where did I get this idea from, I'm just straight up forward with my clientele. Now it is some dentists where like they're more into each other, they're probably catching up. And I know, just take a step back and tell them, as, hey chef, so introduce yourself. So I mainly tell my story at the end of the service. I mainly tell my story if someone comes and wants to know. But I also like to hear their background. I also want to hear, what led you here, and I believe in everything happens for a reason. So sometimes I run into people with similar stories as me. Like, what are the odds and how God is amazing? Chef Craig is from Shreveport, Louisiana. That is insane to me, and this is an international brand. So it's no accident that we are here at this time for a reason. And I can learn a lot from Chef Craig and his stories and where he's been. And I can also take that and bring it to my clients. Well, I'm running to this chef named Chef Craig, and I have a chef mentor named Chef Aris. And I tell those stories too, because Chef Aris, who is my mentor, this lady has been all over the world as well, just like Chef Craig. She has a culinary artistician named after her in Johannesburg, Africa. So right now, as a young chef, I still have my stories that I have to earn and I have to give from my own experiences. But I also like telling other people's stories too, that from my ears, But as far as food, same thing. Where I get the tomatoes from, and that's the information I get from the farmers. Like, hey, this farmer, his name is such and such. This is how he grows it. This is where it comes from. This is how he produces it. This is where it all lands. And then now it's in the front of you. And it makes the food taste better. It makes the food look better. And it makes the experience even more better. So.
Yeah, I think another big moral of what you both just said is, as I was saying, it's not easy sometimes to talk about yourselves. And especially if your background is usually being in the kitchen, being inside, not talking to people, not interacting with your guests, it can be a little overwhelming to start, right? So a lot of the questions that we get from you, chefs, are, well, what do I talk about? Just talk about yourself. As you were both saying, talk about your heritage, how you got to where you are, your childhood stories, your love for food. So I think there's as I said, a big moral of this story of what you're both saying and how you both portray these experiences is start by just being yourself, being authentic, and well, they want to know you and they want you to know them because they're bringing you into their home. So it's a big part of private chefing and dining experiences like this. Another question, guys. When you are preparing to go into a client's house, in that first interactions, you probably have some set of questions to help you prepare for the experience that you're going to deliver. What would be some of those questions?
Well, the first question that I always ask are in there any dietary restrictions or, anything that you don't like or you can't, or any allergens? That's the one you want to definitely put out front. And then also I ask them, like, are you having, wine? Because, I will provide the plates and, I provide cloth napkins. But then I would also ask them, do you have, silverware? Because sometimes, they want to use their own china. Sometimes they want to use their own silver. But those are some of the questions, how do I operate this fancy stove? This high tech. How do I work the equipment? Where's the garbage disposal? So just some of the mechanical things I ask, where would you like to dine? Is it going to be in the kitchen? Because some of the houses are, they have a kitchen and they got a formal dining room. What would you like to eat? And so those are the things that you get out the way first. Hey, how do I set your combi oven? Where's this? Where's my, where I can work in space? So all the mechanics are out the way. But definitely the number one question I ask: are there any allergens? Because you definitely don't want to get anyone sick.
Mm-hmm.
That's the number one question you should ask.
Yeah. Just to piggyback off of Chef Craig, that's definitely the number one thing I ask. Also, does everything work? Do I need to bring portable stoves? How do you feel about me working in your kitchen? Again, like Chef Craig, do you have another space where I can work outside your kitchen? Because my last Ticket Chef's gig, the kitchen was set up beautiful. They rarely used it, and she told me that. So I said, do you have another space I can use? I can bring my own stovetop. It's away from everybody, and I can clean that up and go. And it worked out perfectly. So mainly if anybody has allergies or anybody has a restricted thing for your diet, where is everything? Does everything work? What doesn't work? What needs a little bit tweaking? I had a strange client. You couldn't drop water on the floor because they didn't get it sealed. So we had to put some towels down just in case anything was to go wrong. So just guidelines of what can we use, what we can't use, where are we eating, where can we put the dining setup? Are you using your home tables? Do I need to bring a table? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Getting real, how often does something go wrong? Because you guys are going into kitchens that you've never cooked in before usually, right? Mm-hmm. So there's some stuff that you can prepare for, but I'm guessing there's a bunch of things that just happen. And it's your job to try to make the experience as seamless as possible, because that's why they're hiring a private chef. Yeah. So how often does something, and I don't want to say goes wrong because it's like a bad connotation, but something unexpected happens? And how do you guys deal with it, facing the clients more than anything?
I have two things. One, like we just talked about the mechanicals, like the time I spoke about going into a house and the lady, she was in a wheelchair. She had MS. And so she never used the kitchen really. But then when I go into the kitchen, open up the stove, there's wires hanging out everywhere. Can't use it. Not functional, and then the top of the stove, she had maybe 2 burners that worked, but she had a microwave, right? So there were certain things that I could do in the microwave, and I could use these 2 burners on the stove to boil water, to saute. So you have to be very organized when things like that happen. And then you have to think on the quick, like, okay, let's see what we got to work with. I got a microwave. Okay. Could do some things out of there. I got 2 burners. Okay. So I couldn't bake things in the oven, but, I could adjust the microwave to where I could bake things in the microwave, right? Now, to make my sauce on top of the stove, I could saute my vegetables. The other thing is sometimes they don't understand what they're ordering, like the menu. They may order like for everyone, but then someone doesn't want that. And then you get there with all these ingredients, but not the ingredients of the person that doesn't want that. I'm a vegan. I don't eat that. But so I suggest to everyone, every chef, I say, hey, just, always take, some rice, take some polenta, and you already have a vegetable and a starch, but you can also take extra vegetables for the vegetarians or the vegans so you can accommodate that. Sometimes they order and they say, well, we wanted salmon and steak, but you only brought 4 salmon and 4 steaks, right? But your salmon is 8 ounces, so you can definitely get, if you had 8 people, you can get more portions out of that. Instead of giving them an 8-ounce portion, you give them a 4. Okay. And if you got steaks and they're 12s, then you got enough. So I had enough to feed everyone, even though she was like, oh, I made a mistake. I wanted, a surf and turf. And I said, well, you said 4 salmon, 4 fillets. But I said, but we got you. It's going to be great. I got it. And she said, sure. And this person said, well, I could send my husband out to get more steaks. I said, no, you won't. We got this. And I did. And it was fine. It was even more than they could eat. And it was like, oh, wow. But sometimes you run into those snags. Not often. Some about to have it down packed. But when you do, you have to be able to seem like that. You got to be flawless, like there's nothing happening at all. Like you got it. That, you're a trained professional and the experience goes off without a hitch, just like the lady without the mechanicals. He didn't know that. So when she sat down there, when I put that meal in front of her, she had no idea that I used her microwave and 2 burners on top of the stove.
Chefs are some of the most creative, on your feet people on this earth. Honestly, no such thing as 86. We make it happen. I think that I learned that just living in New York, you got to make it happen, no matter what. And anything's possible when you have a pan and a working stove. And you're probably at least enough material. Have I ran into bad experience? Knock on wood, not yet. But I've also had to think on my feet. I had a lady, they wanted everything on the menu, and I overbuy by if I have 12 people, I have enough for 15 to 16 people. So I'm always ahead. Because some people, and not everybody know what they actually want. They ask for things, but they don't know what they actually want. That makes sense?
Yeah.
In hindsight, sometimes you have to think as a person who's getting experience themselves, like, hey, what if I see this? If I see gumbo and grits, ooh, that looks good, but I order just a salmon. Hey, can I get the gumbo and grits? Good. We have enough. So again, I think chefs are some of the most creative, on your feet, think ahead of time, proper planning, people on it that walk this earth. I have ran into some of the most craziest things at restaurants where a customer asks for something and you're like, well, we don't serve that. And chef, yes, we do. Go find it. Go create it. And you better have it when you come back. And we have it. So I took that experience from New York and Seattle and applied it to my private chef business. And again, 100%, have I had to think on my feet a lot? Of course. But I think we, like Chef Craig could say himself, you just built for it, Like it's like a football player. Like, it's 4th and 10. You got to make a touchdown before to make the playoffs, to win a Super Bowl. Let's make the play happen. So that's my whole experience on that.
I love that. And Chefs, someone told me one time that the most important parts of an experience are the first and the last 10 minutes. What do you guys think of that statement?
Yeah, I think all of it is important. When you say most important, I think the whole experience, because I think that like the first 10 minutes, because the introduction, right? People get a good feel of you get a good feel of them, So I think that piece is there, and then at the end, the conclusion of the conversation, and for me, is because I leave their kitchens, cleaner than I found it, spotless. So that's the last 10 minutes of work I'm doing, right? But then you also, in the last 10 minutes, you want to, let them have their time as well. So, the experience is done, you're cleaning up. So I would say, the last 10 minutes, I would have to disagree to a certain extent, but I definitely would say the first 10 minutes, because you're coming in and they're welcoming you. You're getting to know them. They finally, sometimes the first time they see your face in person. So that first 10 minutes, because I walked in houses and it was just like, oh boy, they just wasn't talking and they just wasn't, interactive. But I was like, but then I got them going and we're smiling, we're laughing, and now we're joking. So that first 10 minutes there to establish that relationship, right? Because the last 10 minutes, you've already had that for the next hour and a half with them. So the last 10 minutes is, it's like they're thanking you and they're saying, talking about how wonderful their experience was. So that's important to know, because you're getting a review right there, right? But I do think that first introduction, that first 10 minutes, and you coming in and you're setting up. This one story I had was like when I walked up to a client's house, they had just built it and had these nice floors, and she says, no shoes. And I was like, well, I'm working in the kitchen, I might drop something on me, I'm thinking this in my mind, but I'm not letting her know. And I say, well, do you mind if I put my non-slip shoe covers on? And she said, oh, wow. You got I said, sure. Open my little handy pantry kit, pulled out my black non-slip shoes, covers, walk right on in, didn't leave a mark or anything. And so that first 10 minutes was like, we were good, because she had a look on her face like, gotta take your shoes off. And I was like, well, do you mind if I use these? And she said, oh, you have those? Oh, wow, you are really prepared. And so I do think that first 10 minutes, I will say that now, maybe Chef Williams may have a little different experience with the last 10 minutes, but I think that first 10 minutes is crucial.
So my perspective is, I think the first 10 minutes are important, but for me, in between courses are important too. So making sure that the plate hits the table at the right time, and each time you touch the table, or like I may send a server to touch the table, hey, how's everything and how's everything going? Because so we constantly keep a communication there. The last 10 minutes, like Chef Craig said, I'm trying to get out of there. I'm trying to clean up, leave it as clean as possible, leave it cleaner than I got there. And just making sure that like it's constant communication with, I call it the front of the house and the back of the house, with me. But for me, first 10 minutes are important because, they get to, like Chef Craig said, they get to see you, see who you are, so they get comfortable. Oh, he's here now. I don't have to worry about a no-show, or I don't have to worry about this, that, and another. And introducing yourself, let them feel comfortable. Hey, this is what we're going to do. This is how we want to do it. Let us know if we need to correct something. And we can just constantly communicate with the host or whoever the host has talking to us. But in between the courses is the most important time for me. That's just me, because I have a server walk around, and not walk and stalk, but like just constantly browse, see who's all finished, who's still lagged behind a little bit, who's taking their time to eat. And I like to say, if 70% of the party is done, we need to start plating or preparing, not preparing, but like plating the next course, so the experience could just flow, And I feel like clients feel that like they don't have to wait at a restaurant, they don't have to wait for the next course, or they don't have to wait and talk. But sometimes clients like that too. So that's just what's important to me. The last 10 minutes, I am saying, hey, touching tables, so talking to each client or each person that's there, and we clean up, we get out of there, because nobody wants you laying around their house for the whole, right? Like those last 10 minutes, we are taking our trash, we are wiping down, we are mopping the floor, we are packing the car, and we eating out of there. Yeah. Those 10 minutes, the first 10 minutes are important. In between courses are important.
Yeah.
Love that. I think what this James was referring to was more about like living on a high note. As you said in the beginning, Chef Aristide, getting those phone numbers or asking for that review, just leaving on a high note, as in making sure that what they're going to stay with is the best part of the experience, reminding them of something, making a quick toast or something like that. But I 100% agree with you guys. The whole experience is super important. And I love what you said about in between the courses, because no one teaches you that. That's something that you have to learn from actually serving these experiences. Do you guys bring any props or any elements, and it could be an extra person, what I'm asking, to ensure that the experiences go smoothly? And does that vary with the number of people or the occasion?
It definitely varies. If I'm doing something from a 2 to 4 top, I can handle that myself. But if I'm doing something from an 8 to 12, I will bring a server. And at one time I was bringing tablecloths. I would ask them, do they have, tablecloths? So I would actually set the whole tablecloths, plateware, silverware, glasses. I would just lay it out. But then I would have a server as well, the napkins, and the server would put the napkins down. I have menus. I have leather menu binders. So I put the menu binders in front of the napkins so they actually see what they're eating as well. So I do that. So, and one time we did candles. We did like plate settings, and we did the candles, like table settings for them, kind of decorated the table because it was just kind of bare. So I said, I got some nice little candles. I had some flowers. And then, I had the menus around, and I had the cloth napkins. Sometimes I take black, sometimes I take white. Depends on what the client wants. So yeah, I do. Yeah, absolutely. And always, I introduce myself. I'm Chef Craig. I'm a graduate of Culinary Institute of America, and I let them know about my server and who will be assisting me tonight is this person, and then we get started.
Yeah, so as Chef Craig said, I have experience servers. Same thing. If it's like a five top, I could kind of handle it myself. That helps with cost too, because you don't want to just serve or with for a small party. Yeah. But anything over 8, I've had 30 top from Ticket Chef, so I've had to have at least 5 guys or girls. But also a sommelier, somebody who's especially we have wine on the menu. I have a good buddy of mine who is amazing out here, and I bring him along to educate our host about the wine, the pairing, and what sorts. So yeah, I always kind of I call it my wingman. So my wingman is this young man named Tucker. I actually met him because he was one of the valet attendants at my apartment complex. And we just hit it off. We play basketball, and he said, "What you do for a living?" I said, "I'm a chef." He said, "Man, I used to work at such and such restaurant and like fine dining." I said, "Hey, man, I could use you sometime," because I didn't know nobody. I didn't know nobody out here. And he called his buddies, and we have a legit team. Like it's just not Chef Aristide and the Temptations. We all a group, So yeah, I always bring a middleman, especially when it's a big party, and we execute it, and they get tipped out, and it's all one big family in our organization. But making sure that like everybody's accommodated. I'm big on touching tables because I don't want you to be eating and like not have nobody check on you, because that actually happens at a restaurant. A lot of servers don't touch tables all the time, depending on the restaurant and what the chef requires. But communication is big with you just in life. Like where family, friends, like me and my girlfriend communicate about everything. So I bring that to my business and make sure that like, hey, is everything good? Do you need some water? Do you need to freshen up your wine? Do you need napkins? Another fork? The whole 9 yards.
There's so much to unpack here. What Chef Craig was saying in the beginning about bringing the printed menu, I think that is such a pro tip because, first of all, people love a souvenir. That's free marketing, free publicity for you. Literally, they're going to find that in a couple of weeks and remember the experience all over again. And maybe someone will ask them about it. And they had this not trinket, but like this token to remind them of how good the experience was. So I think that's like 100% yes. Everyone should do that. And about the bringing someone with you, I think it's something that adds so much more value. And if you are doing your costs right, and if you are, if you know how to price your service correctly, after doing a couple of services, I think you can always find a way to accommodate exactly what you need and what you want off of that service. And mostly, if you ask them, if you explain like, hey, do you want me to bring a waiter? Do you want me to bring a sommelier? Most of the people are going to say yes. Like, usually, they if they're hiring a private chef, it's probably a special occasion. They want to be spoiled. So it doesn't have to come out of your own pocket. You can always like include it as an extra. Yep. And I think it's always very convenient to have someone help you out. Last question, guys. What would be your best advice for someone who is starting as a private chef on how to craft an experience? Like top 3 tips, just like bullet points on how to start, creating this special moment for your guests.
Yes, well, one is you know what the guest wants and know what's in your wheelhouse, what's your niche. I always tell young chefs, it's okay to try something new, but don't try it on your guests. Make it first or a couple of times, perfect it, so they can have the premium experience. Don't go in someone's home and try something new that you never tried before just because you saw it on Instagram and you thought it was cute. You got to practice that. You got to see if it actually works. And then you put that into your niche. That's first and foremost. Know your craft by experience that we talked about in the beginning. Work on that dish, perfect that dish. So then they can have the best meal in front of them, first and foremost. Okay. Know what's seasonal, know what you can get. Don't craft a menu where you can't find it. You can't, source it. You can't get it. If you want to do zucchini blossoms and they're not in season and you can't get them at the farmer's market, then how are you going to get those? Have you ever worked with them before? Then you got to get them freeze dried, and then how does that work? And if you never worked with them before, don't put that on your menu. Don't put ingredients that are not seasonal, that are not commonly found at time of season where you can get them, where they're bountiful. That's number two. When you're crafting these menus, make sure the availability. Okay. Number three, the location of where the person lives, the distance, right? Map it out. So you're there when you say you're going to be there and then on time. So before you even put anything on the plate, make sure you can do it, make sure it's available, and make sure you know where you're going and how long that shelf life or what you need in that cooler to preserve those ingredients by the time you get to that place. If it's an hour away, you got to make sure, and it's the summertime, you got a cheesecake or you got a mousse, you don't want to, so you might not want to put that on your menu. So you have to think about the season and what's going to hold up for the distance. So those are the first and foremost things I would tell them. And know what you're doing. Know what you're talking about. When someone asks you a question, know your menu. Don't say, well, I think it's, I'm not sure. And that from my first, what I just said about knowing your menu and what you're going to put on it. Don't put on something there that you don't know and that you can't explain to that client what it is. Like Chef was saying, know where you came from, know where you sourced it from. Big question I always get is someone says, okay, I want can you make me a Southern menu? First thing I say, do you want Plantation South or do you want Cajun? Yeah. Okay, Southern. Because there is a difference, with Plantation South, you got more sweet potatoes, more collard greens. Then when you talk about Cajun, we're talking about the gumbos, the etouffees, the dirty rice, the jambalaya, the kwamak chou, right? Or do you want a Creole or do you want a Cajun? We know Cajun is the people that migrated from Nova Scotia, that came down Arcadia and lives in the bayou and do turtle and gator. And we know the Creoles was a mixture of people that came from Italy and Spain and France, because France was had owned Louisiana, right? And so these chefs, they brought a little bit of their taste to this with a little Louisiana twitch, and so they called it Creole. So that's the difference, because I don't put tomatoes in my gumbo, but a Creole chef may. So yeah, know if you put it on that plate.
I know we don't put tomatoes in our gumbo down there. We don't feel like like Chef Gray said, amazing. He on all points. I would say, three things I would tell chef younger than me, because I'm still a little young boy and I'm still learning. That try to find an experience yourself first and see what would you do like them and what would you change. Don't judge the experience off of just, this was terrible. Just add your pitch to it. Hey, when I have my private dinners, or like when I do my gigs, I would do it this way because it seems fitting. Also, be in a role of a person receiving a meal. Hey, I like this, I like that, I didn't like this, I like that. I would change something different. Also, like Chef Craig said, have education on where you're getting your stuff from and what are you serving. Just piggyback. As a very young chef, I was like 22 years old. I was just a line cook. Saw something on Pinterest that I'm on the I wasn't a private chef then, but chef asked me to come up with a special, and I saw something on Pinterest because that's where I used to get my ideas from. And although I'm very good at mimicking and making things very, very particular and very, very like the dish that I had made, I didn't have no education on it. And chef asked me, so what is this? What is this? What is that? I had the name of it, what's the origin of it, where it come from, how is it sourced, and I didn't have it. And he said, well, as a young chef, RC, you have to know where everything comes from, because people are going to ask questions. People want to know, where is this coming from? Did you get it from Kroger? Did you get it from Culture? like what? Well, no, and so people want to know what's the origin of a. How did you make the mousse? I've started something new, and I won't get off a lot of recipes. I'm not giving off my gumbo. I'm not giving off my jambalaya. I want recipes, and all of them new. Right. So I have little like this myself, like Chef Craig, and I bring all the dinners. But I don't have that on me now. Certain things that are specialty. I bring the recipe, a small recipe, as a token, so they can take it, they like it, they can repeat it at home. Because God gave us these recipes for a reason. We gotta share them. Yeah. Let's be honest. Now the staples I gotta keep, but things that are like that I know a client will love. Or I may give them a gumbo recipe, but not necessarily my secret ingredients, right? But also sharing information and having that education for clients. You can't be another thing. You can't be scared to show yourself. At 22 years old, I did my first. Let's tell you how crazy life is. My first private gig was with my mentor, Chef Eris Johnson. She is from New Orleans, Louisiana too, and she told me to pull up to this. This is my 3 months in living in New York. She told me to pull up to this little building, and it was kind of beat up. And she said, walk around the building. I just kept on seeing this old Caucasian guy, bald head guy, everywhere. She said, take a picture of the building. And come to find out, I was in James Beard House. So my first experience of doing a private gig was in a James Beard House, because she hosted a dinner there, and she made me touch tables. She made me do a lot of stuff. She made me get educated. She put me on a fire station. It was that. Find someone who has the same interest in, who does not mind sharing information, who does not mind sharing knowledge, who loves it just as much as you, and you have to be dedicated. This can be a brutal industry, so you have to find your passion. You got to find out that this your passion. If you're still passionate, you'll never work another day in your life.
Yes.
I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I just knew I was going to be a lawyer. And I have my conscience. So I was like, man, I don't want to lie just for a paycheck. I want to do something that everybody has to do. Everybody has to eat. Everybody has to drink. Everybody loves experience, right? So I would tell a young chef that find your passion, get knee deep in it, and don't come up for air. Find time for yourself too still, because you can't lose yourself in the industry. Give yourself little breaks, but don't lose your drive. Don't lose your drive. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. That's what makes some of the best chefs the best, right? And it's not going to happen overnight. That's like my biggest theory, and my dad talks about it a lot. Because I had a frustrating moment early in my career where I was like, man, it's not working for me. My food is good, but I'm not getting the clientele that I want. And my dad said, you don't want popcorn. You want soul food. Popcorn, you can only eat for a day. You can't really save popcorn after you freshly popped it. But soul food, you can eat on that for a few days. And it sticks to your soul, it sticks to your body. It adds weight to you, So, hey, get in there, have some grit. Don't give up on yourself. It's not easy, but it's a way. So that would be my 3 things. It's more my 3 things are more personal, because I've been through some down times in my career as just a young chef, just trying to figure it out. And I tell you, no lie, to see Chef Craig, a black man, a black chef, educated, knowledgeable, confident, that inspires me a lot, because there are black chefs there are chefs that look like me, that's like very successful, and I just would love to connect with them. So that gives me a lot of hope. That gives me a lot of drive to see Chef Craig. I to see that all over the world. So yeah, it's possible for a little kid from New Orleans, Louisiana, because Chef Craig, I'm New Orleans.
Yeah, but what I love what you said, Chef Williams, about your grandmother, because that's where I got my passion for cooking. I went to, my undergrad was elementary education, so I'm still educating in a different way, not in a school building, but in a culinary school sometimes. And food is going to be the longest relationship you will have with anything, right? From the time you are breastfed to the time you're eating supplements when you're older. It's going to be the longest relationship you have. And I respect food because something had to die, that plant, for you to be able to have it, for it giving life to it. So that's why when I make meals, I take care of the food, the process, because there is something, a plant or an animal that has given its life for our nourishment, right? So we have to respect food in that way. And I remember being in Leah Chase kitchen in New Orleans, and we're just sitting there just having a conversation, and the passion that she had. Now, at this time, Leah was 90 years old. That's how long she had been in the, at Dookie Chase. And I'm sitting in there having an iced tea, and I'm getting knowledge from this lady. And I'm just oh man, I'm just so excited, because she's icon, like Falls, in Louisiana, they're, big people. So I'm like, wow. Yeah. So I agree with you. We all have these experiences, but there's going to be days where, you just like, man, I am frustrated, especially in the professional kitchen, Anthony Bourdain, we lost some chefs because of this, and Paul Prudhomme told me when I was working at K. Paul's, he said, love what you do, and like you said, you never work a day in your life because you have a passion for it. You put love into every dish because you're loving what you do. If you hate what you do, then it's only to get by, and the dish is not going to taste the same. Now, I have gumbo recipes too. I even do a gumbo class, and I give a roux starter kit where I already have a brown roux for you. All you got to do is add it to your oil, and I have your spice mix, right?
Come on, man. Come on.
Now, everybody gumbo's not going to taste the same because out of this class, I could taste all of these students' gumbo, and it's not going to taste like mine. Not here. And they say, why did that, Chef Craig? I said, because I am the originator, right? Yeah, true. Well, a chef is the creator. A cook cooks the creation.
Well, you guys, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you both so much for opening up like that, for your time. And, well, thank you for just being here. It's super inspiring. It's super insightful. And I hope to talk to you both soon.
Yeah.